Okay, so let's talk about lesson number 1. Know where you're going to land. That sounds like a good idea, don't you think? Now, what I mean by this is not the way it might sound about setting a goal and knowing where you're going, although that's always a good idea too. What I'm talking about is, with your challenge, what would you do if everything fell apart? So I'll tell you a story to illustrate. So I'm out flying with Cleo, and I've actually progressed to the point where I'm getting ready to solo. Well, before you can legally solo, or before it would make sense for you to solo, you got to figure out what you would do if, God forbid, the engine quit. Instead of just whimpering all the way to your death, like I was thinking I would do, it would be better if you had a good chance of putting the plane down in whatever terrain you're in. So we'd go out to practice this. We'd go out to a practice area, and Cleo would just reach over and pull off the power. Plane goes silent, and over my thumping heart, I am to remember the rituals. I'm to remember the maneuvers. And so I'm practicing. So first thing is, pick out where's the safe landing space. Look around, look for the flattest, longest, most unobstructed place I can find, and start heading there. And then there are a bunch of other things you do, and I have to do those. I'm very busy doing those until we get almost down to the ground, and then Cleo mercifully says, climb, and I get to push the power in and climb back up. So we'd done this 5 or 6 times, so I have a very sweaty shirt. And she goes, nice lesson. And I'm really feeling good, and I'm really feeling relieved, and I really want an iced latte. And so we're on our way back to just do a regular landing, which at this point sounds pretty easy, actually. And so I'm parallel to the runway on what's called downwind. So the runway's right off to my left, right? And Cleo and I are chatting, and I'm just about getting ready to pull the power back and do all the things you do to land. And she reaches over and pulls off the power. Oh my God, I totally freeze. I have no idea what just happened or what I'm to do. And then it occurs to me, oh, this is another emergency. And she says to me, Pam, your emergency procedures? And I say, She goes, Pam, where are you going to land? Good question. I'm going to land in that arroyo down there. You're going to land in that arroyo? Yeah. Pam, how about the runway? I want to die. I want to just disappear. I am so humiliated. I am not safe in my own hands, clearly. I do not have it in me to be a pilot. And in Cleo's office, while I'm blubbering, and Cleo is not a gal you want to blubber in front of, trust me on that, but I did it anyway. And she said, it's not that you don't have it in you, it's that this is what training overcomes. So the challenge is not whether you can remember the maneuvers. The challenge is, can you remember them when you're afraid? Because what does fear do, our doctors? You react with fight, flight, or freeze. I choose to freeze. So I had frozen, and I was blinded to the safe landing space right next to me. Has that ever happened to you? Yes. So sometimes if we're afraid in life, we are blinded to the safe landing space next to us. So think about your challenge and think, what if everything really fell apart? What if the engine quit around your challenge? What would be your safe landing space? Now, if you're thinking your bank account, careful, because we know in these days we can't necessarily rely on things like that. If you're thinking, oh, it's my partner, well, be careful because, you know, even those things are fragile. If you're thinking, oh, I have a best friend, that's great. That might be one of your safe landing spaces. But guess what? You want a safe landing space inside that is indestructible. You want a safe landing space that is long, flat, broad, unobstructed, safe, solid ground to which you can always return. So if you have a faith, and I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about spiritual faith. If you have a faith in something bigger than you, it doesn't even matter what it is. Call it nature, call it energy, call it God. Don't call it God. But if you have that faith, that could be your safe landing space. Now, the book talks about how these safe landing spaces evolve and develop. When we were little, they looked a lot different than they do now. It was once the womb. Now you've made it much more sophisticated, but is it up to date with your life? So that's lesson number 1.